everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Jedi Way here on the Outlaw Nation. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, also known as Rocha Fett, joined as always by my co-host on the show, the great Laura Kelly. Laura, how are you?
I'm doing amazing. Apparently, we're in the same boat, John. It's quite hot here right now in
Yeah.
summer 2023 in Chicago. We also are dealing with the bad air quality from the wildfires.
Wow.
We got heat advisories. We got humidity. It's not going well here in Chicago. But despite all that, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm burning up as well. It's hot down here in San Diego. It's crazy what's going on, and so I've got two fans going for me to make sure I can survive, because you got to have the lights on, you got to have everything on, so it's going to heat up the room. But I'm excited to jump into the stuff we're going to be talking about today. For those of you who maybe didn't read the title, we are jumping into some of these the best episodes to get you all ready for Ahsoka. This might be a two-part discussion that we do in this show and then the next show to really talk about all the episodes. But that's not all we're talking about. Also recapping Comic-Con, some of the news we got out of Comic-Con, and of course, leading the news segment today is the massive news that Donald Glover is coming back along with his brother Steven to write the Lando series. So there's a lot for us to be discussing here today. So I just want to remind you all, before we jump into everything, please remember to subscribe to the channel down below, hit a like on this video, and share it on your social media. And don't forget that the Outlaw Nation is its own podcast network. So if you want to hear any of the previous episodes that we've done and not go hunting for them on YouTube, you can go over there and see listen to all the Jedi Way episodes as well. Laura, let's not waste any time so we can both get out of the heat. Where shall we start first?
Well, let's talk about Donald Glover and his brother Steven signing on to write the Lando series. This is news that just broke yesterday when we're recording. This is very exciting. And I don't want to bury the lead, because my first question the minute I saw this headline was, wait a minute, what about this Hollywood strikes that are happening right now?
Yeah.
And the thing that came out of Above the Line, which was the first to report this, was that this whole thing was decided. This writer switch for the writer strikes began on May 2nd. So Donald Glover and his brother Steven, they've not performed any work on the Lando series since that writer's strike began. I just want to put that out there, because that was my immediate question when I saw this. I'm like, surely he's not, they're not, and they're not. Yeah. They're not. But this is very exciting news. Did you guys talk about this last night when you were on your show?
Yeah, on the hot mic. Yeah, Jeff broke the news on Above the Line. Then 2 minutes later, we were leading with it on the hot mic episode, so on the hot mic show. So yeah, it was interesting, and I hadn't heard about it, by the way. He didn't. Sometimes he doesn't tell me the scoop, so I have an authentic reaction when we're doing the show. And certainly, I was very surprised by it, because I thought Justin Simeon was doing it. He has the Haunted Mansion coming out, and so it's an interesting moment. But from what Jeff said was that Justin left of his own accord because of the overruns and the issues with reshoots on Haunted Mansion. So it wasn't like they kicked him out. It was that he was just overwhelmed with things going on Haunted Mansion. He couldn't give the commitment to the show he wanted to. But I also think that maybe he read the tea leaves, and Kathleen Kennedy's been saying she does not want to do a Lando show without Donald Glover. Donald has not fully been committing to it. It says he's always wanted to do it, but unsure. We just finished the Atlanta series. Swarm came out and was done, and he's focusing on the Community movie a little bit. So now was the right time. And apparently, as you said, they've been working this out for a while now, and now it's coming into fruition. And I think this also means he's coming back to play Lando, even though he's chronologically 2 years older than Billy Dee was when he played Lando. So, but I also think there's a possibility, because this is a series, that Donald will direct one of the episodes, if not all the episodes. So just something to consider, or may bring in his Atlanta director, Hiro Murai, I think his name is, who did those episodes as well of Atlanta. So all kinds of things are possible, but it's exciting. But I have questions. Laura, what about you?
Oh, interesting. See, I'm excited about this. I hate this, but I haven't watched Atlanta yet. It's on my list. Hear me out. Like, now we've got the Hollywood labor strikes going on. There's going to be a lot of delays. We just heard about more films being delayed earlier today when we're recording, and it's going to be a while, I think, which is good. These studios need to start paying people a fair wage. So I fully support it. But that's going to mean that a lot of us, I think, are going to have a lot of time to maybe catch up on some of these series we haven't seen before. And for me, Atlanta, I think, is real close to the top of the list because it's one I've been wanting to see. But I saw one thing that was really interesting today, which is that Justin Simeon apparently, he posted something on Instagram that he learned about Donald Glover coming on as writer with his brother. I think the same way all of us did. Like there was no communication to him from Disney or Lucasfilm prior to news breaking yesterday, which is a really interesting but also not surprising way that Lucasfilm and Disney would handle something like this that way. Like give him the courtesy. I know he left of his own accord to like focus on directing. Come on. So I don't know. That's a little bit strange, but I want to hear some of your concerns. What are you going on about a little bit with this?
Well, two things. I mean, something, and we brought this up on the Geek Buddies the other day when we were discussing it, and it was something I hadn't considered. Is like Donald Glover's stuff is very much social commentary. Swarm, Atlanta. It's social commentary. His Deadpool series that he was writing with his brother that they moved him off of and then never did the series had a lot of social commentary from what some people had said who had read the scripts. So at a time when, and listen, I'm not saying I agree with this point of view. I'm saying this is something to consider at a time when everything Disney releases under its umbrella, Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, what have you, is being attacked for go woke, don't go broke, that kind of thing. It concerns me that people are going to rebel against a social commentary show led by a black actor, written by two black writers, commenting about what this might be like to be black in Star Wars. And I'm just kind of like, okay, is the fan base ready for it? I'm down. Bring it to me. I mean, to me, this goes in connection with Andor, the darker, grittier, more honest, topical stuff of Star Wars. I'm always a fan of. I just have concerns how the fan base is going to react to it. And the second concern I have, Laura, is this even going to happen? Because remember, Kathleen Kennedy, she knew what she was getting in Lord and Miller, and yet she moved them off. Arguably, the 80 to 90% of that film had been shot, and she made the decision to move them off. They went on and won an Oscar with Spider-Verse. They got the second installment has been even more well received. So maybe there's a mistake Kathleen Kennedy made there. Is she going to feel like the same thing here if Donald and Steven's scripts come back and they're much more of edgier, socially conscious? Is she going to feel like that's a dangerous thing right now for them to take on and then move them off the project? So I just have a lot of concerns, a lot of questions going into the situation. Am I crazy? What do you think?
No, not at all. And I think anytime you have any kind of concern about any Star Wars series potentially not making it to the finish line and never coming out, it's a valid concern. It's happened too many times. Or big creatives getting pulled off of the project pretty late in the game. Not the first time it would happen. But now that's a major concern, though, with this Lando series, especially if you want to involve Donald Glover, because you can't very well pull off the writer if he's also starring in the series. I'm like, he's not going to walk away from one and stay in the other, I don't think. I think that this is, but I mean, I don't remember what the original announcement included when we talked about this in December 2020, when Kathleen Kennedy announced this on Disney Investor Day. If Donald Glover would be in the role of like executive producer or anything like that. I mean, maybe he's had sort of a hand in the creative component of this show all along. And I just am either not remembering or we don't know. And so I like to think that he would have at least had some say in all of the creative decisions that were happening, whether it was bringing on Justin Simeon or not. I just like to think that he'd have some involvement, or at least need to kind of sign off on it in order to like get him to actually be involved in something like this. Because no one else is going to play this role, like it's got to be Donald Glover or it's no one, like at this point in the Star Wars timeline. So I think it's a valid concern. As far as the social commentary that he and his brother could potentially bring to scripts in this, I'm also all for it. And I feel like because we've been getting so much of that from Disney, that they kind of just don't care that there's going to be a certain portion of the fandom that's going to push back and that isn't going to like that. I mean, the fact that they keep doing it over and over again and bringing some of these sort of modern issues into Star Wars and just putting it out there anyway, like I just don't think that they care like about that part of the fandom that just isn't wild about that. And good for them for releasing these things and standing by them and sticking by them anyway. So hopefully that will carry over into this. But this show has got a long road ahead of it before it actually comes to fruition, I think. We've already now seen one set of turned over writers. So I think you have a valid concern about it making it ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, because just now Marvel has been taking all kinds of hits for that. And we've seen their films underperform. Secret Invasion, people are really upset about that. Falcon and Winter Soldier tried to make social commentary, but it kind of fell short of what it was overall trying to do, in my opinion. So I just wonder, I don't want them to play it safe if they're going to do it. Don't introduce it at all if you're not going to really explore. That's what I loved about Andor. Andor was unapologetically what it is. And it was clear and consistent throughout about what it was. And it felt like, whether you liked it or not, it didn't pull any punches of what it was trying to tell, the story it was trying to tell. So I'm hoping Lando gets that kind of rope as well to do that. The other question I have for you, Laura Kelly, is will we see Alden Ehrenreich? Will we see him back as Solo? Will we see Chewie? Jonas Atomo, will we see him as Chewie? Will we see a young Leia? Will we see a Luke? Will we see Han? Han? But will we see these characters that have been a part of the Star Wars universe around that time? Do you think they'll be popping up in the series?
A young Ben Solo, perhaps another potential.
Yeah, sure.
That's a big question. I have a big question about that too. Now, do we have an idea of approximately when the show is supposed to be set in the timeline?
No, but I mean, obviously it's going to be after Solo. So where is it going to be in the timeline? It can't be that much further, else they'll have to age him up, which wouldn't make sense. So this feels like it might be just before Cloud City, or maybe it'll be about how he ends up being on Cloud City and taking over Cloud City. But maybe it ends with Han and them showing up right at the end or Vader showing up right at the end and all of that happens. I don't know, but it should be around that time, I would imagine.
Right. There's so much possibility in this timeline for some of these legacy Star Wars characters to make an appearance. My hope is that we just roll with the recasting and that we're not doing any of this de-aging, all of this CGI, this uncanny valley Luke Skywalker that we had. Like, I just don't want any of that. But I think it's a safe bet that we're inevitably going to get some of it if anybody has anything to say about it at Disney and Lucasfilm and any of the people who are in charge of The Mandalorian who brought young Luke Skywalker to life. I mean, I feel like it's probably inevitable it's going to happen, but I mean, good God, just recast them. I mean, look how successful you were with Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian. I mean, he just knocked it out of the park. So I hope that they can be open to that. And I wonder maybe what kind of creative push Donald Glover might have or say in that kind of decision, if it's ultimately going to be really his baby, which is what it sounds like this show is ultimately going to be. So
yeah. I hope we get Lobot or the beginnings of that relationship. There was a lot of great stuff, I thought, in the Lando comic book series that came out 2 years ago or whatever. There was that limited run. I really enjoyed that. So are there going to be elements of that? It's very possible that we don't see any of the legacy characters, and it is just Lando adventures, Lando stories, new characters, new mythologies, new species, new planets. And it really has that scoundrel point of view to it, which is, of course, something we're going to get to later on when we talk about Star Wars Outlaws. Could be staying in the vein of that. But, of course, everything depends on the strike. Everything depends on when that's going to be settled. And with everything getting pushed, when this is going to be seen, so, but I like it for now.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of scheduling, I think, conflicts coming about in the future once all of the strike are resolved. It's going to be a lot of moving things around.
Laura, is this the way Kira comes back? Is this how we get Emilia Clarke back in the Lando series? Is that a possibility? Or Crimson Dawn, Darth Maul? Are these possibilities here?
I would like to think that, I mean, Darth Maul's a big question mark. I mean, we sort of know how his story ends. We know he ends up on Malachor mysteriously somehow at some point in the timeline. So some of those I think would definitely be interesting to explore. I think Kira is a big question mark, but she's also getting a lot of exploration in the comics right now. I think there's a bunch of bounty hunter centric stories that are happening in the comics right now that are set between Empire and Return of the Jedi. I think the same period that Star Wars Outlaws is supposed to be set. So I think that there's also a new novel coming out. I think that's Kira centric. So I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't get any more of her in the Lando series, at least in that role as Kira. I would really like more Emilia Clarke as Kira, though. I really liked her in that role, and I think she could really do something interesting with it if she's given a little bit more time, especially given all the like kind of twisted turns her character is taken in the comics, from what I understand. So definitely could be an interesting possibility.
Do you think we'll get a Lando novel?
Ooh, I'm sure there'll be some. I mean, inevitably there'll be some tie-in material, but I don't know. Kind of surprising, honestly, that we haven't had one in canon yet. He's been included in some of them. We just haven't gotten like a Lando-centric story. So yeah, big question. I'm sure he'll show up in Return of the Jedi, from a certain point of view. Anthology series that's coming up. I hope we get some good Lando content out of that, and we'll see where maybe some of those story threads end up potentially in this Lando show.
That could be interesting for sure. Yeah. Cool. All right, where are we off to next in our discussion of Star Wars?
I want to hear about San Diego Comic-Con. You and I haven't talked too much about what your experience was like. I guess I kind of thought that this would be a little bit more of like a quiet year with all the major film studios not having too much of a presence there, but it sounds like it was a pretty lively convention nonetheless. So how did it go?
Yeah, I mean, it was chock full. From what the numbers were saying, what they were saying with the numbers afterwards, 130,000 tickets were sold, and $130,000 people, at least 130,000 people showed up. And so I was very surprised by that when I went down for the 2 days that I went down. I thought for sure it was going to be much more easier to get into everything, and it kind of wasn't. One of the positives was that the panels were chock full of people. Some panels had standalone rooms because they or stand about, like it was just standing room only is what I'm trying to say. Sorry, standing room only. A lot of these rooms had, especially Star Wars panel, the publishing panel, they were turning people away. They did not anticipate that they were going to need a bigger room. So that's an interesting thing. Star Wars Outlaws was pretty full panel. And from what I understand, the Ahsoka stuff was pretty full when they were talking about all that Star Wars other stuff that was going on. So that was great. And then the way they set everything up on the floor, I went on Thursday, thankfully, and I was able to take pictures or see and peruse everything without too much craziness. Saturday was nuts, but Thursday was chill. And I was able to walk around and see all the kind of stuff. So to me, the overall vibe was that people were there to celebrate Comic-Con and enjoy it because they know that, the studios weren't going to be there. So they wanted to kind of, in a way, support the essence of it still going on by being there and buying stuff and filling the panels and taking in all the stands. So the general overall vibe was very positive. I didn't sense that kind of angsty energy that I've sensed at other Comic-Cons where people are rushing to get to the next thing or pushing you aside or angry that they're all shoved into one area as they're walking through the main convention floor. So overall, I felt like it was a very positive energy the whole time I was there. Yeah.
That's so cool. I mean, that sounds like the idea of being at a convention, not being rushed to do anything is like euphoric. That is I literally can't imagine what that must be like. And I have been to one Comic-Con. It was like 17, 18, 19, something like that. I went once and I had a blast. But yeah, I remember during the publishing panel, like I think I had told you and Kevin, like I just kind of camped out in that one room all day because it was kind of all the Star Wars stuff was happening in one room, in one small-ish room, really, at the con on the Friday that I was there. So it's really heartwarming actually to hear that the publishing panel was so big that they were literally having to turn people away. I mean, oh my gosh, like how cool is that for those authors that were up there on the panel getting to talk about their work? That's just awesome.
Well, I think that's growing, isn't it? As more of these novels come out, and I've got Rise of the Red Blade ready to go here. Like, more of these novels that come out, more of these comic books that come out, more people are enjoying what's happening in those areas. In just about every area, but theatrically, people are enjoying what Star Wars is doing, the video game stuff, which we're going to talk about. So like, that's a positive. You know, you want everything to be elevated so that you can have multiple avenues with which to tell all these stories. And so it's nice to know that there's a lot of respect for the Star Wars publishing side of things, because I also think they've been delivering really good product for the most part overall. So it's good to see that, as you said, people appreciating that. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. And you mentioned Rise of the Red Blade. Have it right behind me here.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it. I know that Delilah Dawson read an excerpt from the book on the panel. And then I think E.K. Johnston read an excerpt from the upcoming Kira novel, which is really exciting. This panel, by the way, somebody filmed it, so it's available it's available to watch on YouTube if you were one of the unfortunate people that got turned away from that panel. I know Kevin, our poor co-host Kevin, is not able to join us tonight, but he mentioned that he was like, like 7 people behind or something, where they cut off the line. I felt so bad. I was like, oh, that would have been so neat for him to get in. Yeah. But fortunately, a good friend of mine grabbed one of the exclusives for me from the Con Exclusives, Tales of Light and Light, which is the High Republic anthology series I've been looking forward to. And it doesn't come out until like September or something. I was like, I refuse to be one of the last people to get it on day one. I want it on the pre-day one. So my buddy Luis sent me that book from the con. It's very exciting. Yeah, so much fun. So yeah, the publishing panel was great. I loved getting to see StarWars.com, of course, posted some highlights and some images and some of the panels that were shown at that convention. Very excited about the High Republic emphasis that we had in that panel for sure.
Yeah.
But you know, there was a lot of Ahsoka stuff happening at the Lucasfilm Pavilion.
Yeah.
They had all kinds of costumes, helmets, and saber hilts and all kinds of fun stuff. And I saw your picture that you sent that you got to take when you were there.
I was literally people. There was like 2 people in line. I could not believe it.
How?
I know. I walked up, and it was a Thursday, like at noon. I walked up, and I was just like, can we take pictures? And she's like, yeah, I'm taking this person's picture, but the line's over here. And I just walked over, and I said, wait, are you guys the end of the line? And it was a nice little family, and they're both like, oh yeah, come on. And so I just stood right behind them. It was great. They took the picture, and then I was next up. Oh, this is great. So yeah, it was very surprising. Reminded me of old school Comic-Con when you could just walk up and only wait a little while to get a picture with something. So yeah, the mural was so big, and being able to stand in front of it and just kind of grasp what you're watching, and also get that vibe from the Ahsoka trailer. When we see Sabine walking up to the mural, I was like, this is really cool to do this for people to enjoy. And it wasn't like highlighted or anything. It wasn't a big deal. You just kind of come upon it, and then you're like, wow, this is awesome. So yeah.
I'm just imagining being like a Star Wars fan watching the finale in 2018 of Rebels and seeing that mural. Right. And then walking up at this convention and seeing that in person, like I would melt into a puddle. I don't think I would be able to, I would not be photogenic enough to like take a picture there. So cool. But some of the props that they were showing, they were really neat too. I saw a picture of the Loth Cat, and I think it was credited. It had a little note on it that said that Legacy Effects was responsible for this little monstrosity. And I think that's the same group of people that made Grogu come to life. Oh, so awesome. This is so exciting. I mean, I've seen the cat in the previews, the trailers, and it's so cute. Such a unique thing that they were able to bring this to life in a practical way, to the point where Natasha Liu Bordizzo gets to like interact with this thing, like this real puppet on the set. That must be so cool, because just the inactive thing sitting on that little pedestal there is just so neat and so cool looking, and it's very cute.
Yeah, and a few things, right? Because I mean, you got the let's take a look at it. We got the thing from the oh my god.
Oh, Merrick. This is the Inquisitor's lightsaber.
Yeah, the Inquisitors. Yeah, which we saw in the trailer as well. So getting to see these real life props here was so fun. Seeing the lightsaber hilts that Shinhati, seeing her lightsaber hilt being a part of this as well. Balin's lightsaber hilt, and then Ahsoka's ship. Getting to see her ship and how that's going to look like in the show. And then this little awesome thing. I mean, how cool must it be for Rosario to be on this ride right now, where she's essentially taken over as the look of Ahsoka live action, and all these dolls and all these like sculptures and all these things are being like done with her likeness on them. So it must be just kind of mind blowing. on so many
I
levels.
know.
You know?
I would just have to like constantly be pinching myself if I were her. And it's too bad. Like, we can't, we've been, I think, kind of lucky in that we had Star Wars Celebration earlier this year, and we've gotten lots of insights, and we've gotten 2 trailers so far for the Ahsoka show. But it's kind of unfortunate that, like, I think, that sort of promotion train has to stop for now.
Yeah.
So that we probably won't get too much more, unfortunately, unless it's something that was filmed prior to the onset of the strikes. But I feel for her because like this is just so I mean, what an iconic character to be playing, to be bringing to life. And between her and Natasha and Mary Elizabeth Winstead getting to bring these 3 women to life in such a real way in this amazing universe must just be so exciting. So I hope it was a good experience for them on set, and I hope the promotion that they were able to do up until now has been a good experience, and hopefully we get more from this show and subsequent seasons in the future once all of the labor strikes are hopefully resolved.
Yeah, get settled. That would be so much fun if that happens for sure. There's a Lego Star Wars set coming as well for Ahsoka.
Oh my gosh, there's so many Lego stuff. Okay, so this is so interesting because some of this stuff, these like one of the Lego sets, I think, from Comic-Con leaked ahead of time. And we saw the little minifig of Jason Syndulla that showed up in this like leaked Lego set from the Ghost. And I'm like, people were like shocked. We're like, holy shit, like we had no idea that, I mean, I guess it's like logical that he would be in the show. It makes total sense. But like nothing had ever been confirmed. We still don't know the name of the actor who's playing him. But it was so exciting. And so now I think we've got the full reveal of all of these different Lego sets that are coming courtesy of the Star Wars Ahsoka series, including an updated set of the Ghost. This is, I think what we're looking at there is the New Republic E-Wing versus Shin Hati's Starfighter set. So that was one reveal that came out. And then
I've got to get this for my nephew. He is a big Lego Star Wars person, like big. And so
he's going to need these then.
Yeah, look at these 9+. Perfect time. Yeah, you got the little figures down there as well, Laura. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's Ahsoka's T6 Jedi shuttle. I think this is the same. Is this the same thing? Still the Jedi shuttle, and now we've got the minifig of Merrick down there too.
Yeah.
So interesting that this Inquisitor, we got a name. We get to see them. We know nothing else about them, I think, other than the stunt guy that's playing them. But yeah, lots of new minifigs coming.
You gotta love it. Yeah, a little Inquisitor there. Yeah, look at that. That's cool. I dig it. I got to get both of them. Is there a release date on them? Have they said, or is it going to be closer to?
Many of them are September 1st. So I think the Ahsoka series comes out at August 23rd. I believe. Yeah. So just a couple, week and a half or so after that, September 1st is when all of these new Lego sets will be released, including an updated set of the Ghost. That should be somewhere in that article too. Yeah.
The T6 Jedi shuttle comes with Ahsoka, Sabine Wren, Professor Huang, and Marek. And it's 599 pieces.
Yeah, some of these are pretty pricey. They're pretty big builds, so this will be maybe a nice Christmas present. Maybe start saving for that now if you're going to throw down.
Right, the one is $80, and the two ship one is 110. It's 1,056 pieces. So wow, a lot of stuff. Okay, all right. Interesting stuff. What else we got, Laura, coming out of Comic-Con? Anything else we need to hit on or discuss?
Well, I want to hit a little bit of more of the publishing panel highlights, but first I'd like to talk about Star Wars Outlaws, if we could, because I know that you're upset. Good Lord, you're excited about this. You're excited and upset, John. But I, from what I've heard, it sounds like this is going to be very exciting. I didn't realize that this is the first open world game in Star Wars until I watched some of the highlights from this panel. But I would love to hear some of the things that you're excited about for this game, because I'm sure you'll end up streaming some of your gameplay on Twitch at some point.
At some point, yeah. I mean, this was just such a great experience. Kevin talked me into coming down to go to this panel, and I did make it down in time. And Kevin and I stood in line and just were talking about it. And we had a wonderful gentleman talking with it next to us. Really excited. And we got in and sat down. And then the presentation was great. Like, obviously, you're missing the voiceover actress, the motion capture actress who plays the lead in the show. And she's a Latina actress, so I wanted to kind of be there and show support. But unfortunately, she couldn't be there. But there was a 9-minute behind the scenes feature that they played for us, and you got to see like all the work involved in creating it. and we got to see some of the scenes that we haven't even seen in the trailers yet, which I thought was really great, and some of the behind the scenes live action stuff motion capture stuff that they were shooting as they were going along and doing stuff. So it really is incredible the effort that they put into these games, and it's increasing with every one of these games because the response is so positive from all these games. Battlefront aside, the response overall with Jedi Survivor, those things are very positive. So I was so surprised at the open world stuff. And that's something they kept stressing in the conversation with the creators, the writers, the writer that was there and the two creators. They spoke openly about how it is open world. If you want to take that speeder bike and go all over Tatooine, which is Laura's vacation destination, you can absolutely do that and see everything. And then you can go, when you go on these missions, it is also open world in a lot of ways. And so that really impressed me and blew my mind. And it made me even more excited to pick up the game when it comes out. And I will absolutely be firing up my Twitch to do some gameplay on that one for sure.
Very exciting. It sounds like, there's going to be a lot of new stuff added sort of to the Star Wars lore. There's going to be new crime syndicates, new crime families.
Yes.
We've got a whole new moon called Toshara that's new to the Star Wars universe that was created for this game. I think that's going to be your other primary location in this game besides Tatooine. I really love the possibility that you get to not only work for Jabba the Hutt, but also betray him at some point as you're playing this character. You can go all these... take your story down many different directions, it sounds like. And that sounds like a very exciting possibility for something like this.
Yeah, one of the things that surprised us with is that they wanted to call it Star Wars Scoundrels. And that they felt the title wasn't, like, either it was too alliterative or they just didn't 100% like the title. And so they went with Star Wars Outlaws. But I can't tell you how many times they kept stressing that this is a scoundrels game. This is a scoundrels game, the scoundrels world, the world of the scoundrels. It's very much, and they would have to catch themselves and say, but it's called Star Wars Outlaws, but it's very much about the scoundrels and living in the world of scoundrels. So I wonder, remember years and years ago, George Lucas had written that Underworld, Star Wars Underworld series that he was considering doing on ABC. And I wonder if maybe some of the elements of that have kind of slipped into here. Or the 1313 stuff, if that's kind of slipped into here. And one of the things they stress is that this is only during a certain pocket between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, that it took them a while to figure out where that pocket of time is that they could put something like this in that would not mess with the overall canon and mythology and chronology of what's going on in the world of Star Wars. So I left very impressed by their approach to it, their knowledge, their honesty, because one of them, I think, said that one of the creators said that, like, they weren't 100% knowing every single thing that happened in Star Wars. So getting that crash course and then really kind of figuring it out and finding a way to weave in their storylines seemed like an awesome challenge for them to do. And coming out of it, I'm just so looking forward to see what they're going to create.
That's so neat. Yeah, this is allegedly set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and that is such a cool possibility because you've got the rebellion and you've got the Empire coming to a head, and the Empire is so distracted by everything that's going on that the underworld and these criminal syndicates are just probably thriving just because of the way that the Empire is distracted. So this is a really cool time period, and to be setting a game like this, the idea of getting to play a scoundrel for this entire open world game sounds very fun. I wish I was a gamer. Makes me wish I was a gamer. Sadly, I'm not, but I'm glad that you are and that you're excited about this one.
Yeah, they got a little animal there that's her sort of companion that does all kinds of stuff. And that droid, that's one of the baddest ass droids I've ever seen, walking in with a duster. And so I like it. I like it's got shades of the Rogue One stuff with K2SO and Andor, but like in a different way. And I really appreciate that for sure. Yeah.
Very cool. That game will be out sometime in 2024. No final release date yet.
God damn. Give me the game. All right. Let's take a quick break, Laura, and then we'll jump into our Ahsoka conversation about some of these episodes people should be looking at right after this.
All right.
All right, Laura. Ahsoka is on the way, very close. We can sense it and feel it in the air, excitement building. What do we have to tell our listeners and our watchers here about maybe some of the episodes they can be looking at or focusing on as they prepare to watch the series.
Well, I like to think that this series is going to do plenty to get those who are not super familiar with the Ahsoka story up to speed.
Sure.
So I guess in a perfect world, you won't need anything to prepare. But we all know that it's more fun to sort of not be the person that's catching up in this situation, not be that viewer, but to come in a little bit more ahead of the game.
Yeah.
So do you need to read the Ahsoka novel in order to do that? No, I don't think so. They've already retconned it in Tales of the Jedi. So I really don't think that you need to put quite that much effort into it. But it is a good novel if you do have the time to sit down and read that young adult novel, Ahsoka, that came out in 2015-ish. Yeah. But if you don't, there are plenty of ways to get caught up. And you can kind of narrow down some of these essential Ahsoka episodes of Star Wars Rebels pretty easily. And same with Tales of the Jedi. There's only 6 episodes total. 3 of them are Ahsoka, and I think only 1 is really essential viewing for this series. But Star Wars Rebels, there's a little bit more to dive into. Star Wars, The Clone Wars, there is a lot more to dive into to get, I think, caught up. And again, you can kind of you can narrow it down as much as you want and take it as broad as you want. But I think that we can definitely spend a whole nother episode going into some of the details and breaking down why some of these episodes are important, and giving our viewers a little bit of a recap. You and I have actually already done that a little bit. We already did some of our homework back in November 2021. We released an episode of the Jedi Way called Exploring Anakin and Ahsoka in the Clone Wars, where we discussed the essential relationship-centric episodes of the Clone Wars that sort of focus on Anakin and Ahsoka together. There's a lot more episodes of the Clone Wars that are probably more Ahsoka-centric that are important to watch that we didn't talk about in that episode. But I think going back and maybe checking out some of those essential Anakin Ahsoka episodes that we talked about back then is going to be really helpful, since we know that Hayden Christensen is supposed to appear in the Ahsoka series. So maybe giving yourself a refresher on that Anakin-Ahsoka relationship is certainly I think in everyone's best interest. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, like Laura said, maybe I'll put that up when I'm editing the episode. I'll put the link up so it pops up like you can do on YouTube for you all to watch. So maybe look up right now and see if it's on the screen there for you all to go and watch that one as well. But yeah, I mean, this is a character that's so fascinating from where she started to where she is now. Really, the rarity, right? I think Harley Quinn is the most correlative thing, where someone has come along, created the character, and it's become as iconic as the characters it was created around and to interact with, And I think that's high praise for both Ahsoka and Harley in different ways. And so to see where she's at now and the way Rosario is playing her and her age as we go into the series, I like that. And it's fun to go back and watch these old episodes to see her like working with Asajj Ventress in Clone Wars, her defending the younglings that were there in that episode of hers in Clone Wars. Her stuff with Anakin is interesting as well. And of course, the 4-episode arc about her not setting the bomb, but people thought she set the bomb in the Jedi Temple. Like, though there's so much to savor and enjoy with her progression throughout these episodes of Clone Wars. And then you get to Rebels when she's a much more confident, older Jedi, older person. She's fulcrum. She's got stuff going on with her and Sabine. We see the relationship building between her and Sabine in some of these episodes in Rebels as well. So that by the end, when all that stuff happens at the end, we buy that they would go after Ezra, that those two would come together to go after Ezra. So it's just so fun and fantastic. It's such a fun and fantastic character. And it's great to go back and revisit these episodes. And I don't think it's homework. Like it's fun. These are good episodes. Great performances. This is some Ashley Eckstein doing wonderful voiceover work and acting as Ahsoka, but everyone around her and the interactions and the genius of Filoni, how he was taking this character through these beats and really building the foundation of this character so strongly that now she's so beloved by so many people,
Exactly. And I think that the Clone Wars season 7, that more recent season that we got, I'll be very curious to see what kind of story beats are sort of, I don't know, not necessarily addressed, but maybe referenced in the live action series, just because I I sort of suspect that we know for a long time that there was rumblings of like a live action Ahsoka series in the works, in people's minds for a very long time. But I wonder how close it was to becoming an actual thing when they were making the Clone Wars season 7. If it was starting to feel like a real possibility. Because that Ahsoka felt very different. I mean, I remember watching that season 7 when it came out and thinking that it felt much more like the Ahsoka that we knew in Star Wars Rebels. Just even the way that Ashley Eckstein performed the character, it just felt a little older, calmer, more mature. This more mature version of this character that we got, and that progresses obviously even further by the time we get to Rosario's take on it. So it'll be very interesting, I think, to see what all we're pulling and what all we're referencing from the Clone Wars, just to like give the super fans their fix and like give them a little wave in this live action series. And how, whether or not that's going to actually be essential for some of the viewers who maybe aren't as familiar with her story. But if we want to get in a little bit more detail, I think maybe we save the Clone Wars for another time because there's just so much of it. So maybe our next episode we talk more about that.
I like that idea.
Honestly, I think season 7, I think you need all of that. And you referenced the arc where she is wrongly accused of setting off a bomb. And I mean, you need that whole arc, I think, too. That's so essential that why Ahsoka left the Jedi Order. But Star Wars Rebels, she's not in it a lot.
No.
I mean, I remember thinking that she was such a big part of it because her presence is so big in it that it feels like there's more of her than there actually is. With Force Toast, Alice and I have been going back and doing a rewatch series, and we've been recapping each season and kind of watching some of these essential episodes. In season 2, I was just like, I was surprised. I was like, I thought there was more of her. I mean, she just kind of like pops up every now and then.
Yeah.
And there's really just like 4 episodes of season 2 that I think are sort of required reading, I would like to think, in terms of the Ahsoka live action series. So we see her in season 1, the very end of season 1 of Star Wars Rebels. We get the reveal that she is the mysterious character that's been known as Fulcrum up until this point, who's been wearing a hood and has been revealed. We actually do see her at the very end of that. And I remember watching that episode when I first got into Star Wars animation, and having not watched the Clone Wars, I watched Star Wars Rebels season 1, got to that finale, and I was like, I am missing something. There is something more to this character that I'm supposed to know, and I don't. So that's what actually motivated me to stop and go back and watch all of the Clone Wars before I got into season 2. But it's essentially season 2 where she's playing a much bigger role. There's some great scenes of her and Anakin, or of her watching a holo of Anakin and talking to Ezra about how Anakin was this great warrior, but he cared so much about his friends and he had this softer side. And at this point, she doesn't really, I can't remember if in that story she knows for sure at that point that he is Vader. I don't think she's learned that yet.
No, I don't think that. No, not yet.
Yeah. So
it's more like a lost thing. It's like she's lost him somehow. So the way she's talking about him. Yeah.
I think she's sort of under the impression at that point that he probably died during Order 66, like so many of the Jedi, which made it all the more devastating when she finds out later in that season and can sense that not only is he not dead, that it's almost worse, that he's become this horrific thing.
Yeah.
And she, to the point where she actually senses him and then faints, that it's like that much of it has that much of an impact on her. It's just insane. But towards the end of the season, we get episode 18, which is Shroud of Darkness, where she visits a Jedi temple. She has another vision about Anakin. Yeah. She has a vision and sort of a talk with Yoda. There's these really great moments with her and Kanan and her and Ezra in this temple. And it feels, it's sort of a trippy experience being in this Jedi temple in Lothal. And I really, really hope that we get that in the Ahsoka series. I hope we go to some Jedi temples, and I hope there's some weird shit that goes down in them, because it's really fun watching it in animation, and I really hope that we actually get to see some of that in live action.
Well, she seems to be the conduit for these things that Filoni likes to do. These kind of out there, interesting explorations of the mysticism of Star Wars and what have you. And certainly that episode, Shroud of Darkness, has elements of that in that episode, and leading to the also very real emotional closure there between Yoda and Ahsoka, which I thought was really great. I mean, him willing to concede certain things, but her also, not wanting to drive the nail in too hard about what happened. And they're both of them have grown in different ways from the experience, and so having that closure there, but also the way that whole episode goes down, the images and the things that she sees in her visions, just really powerful stuff, you know. And there have been a few times where Ahsoka has seen visions, or certainly in episode 7 or season 7 of Clone Wars, when she senses Anakin in that ship and what Anakin has done. That is such a powerful thing. So she has this ability to have these kind of visions that show her things, or she can sense things as they're happening, you know.
I know. It makes me wonder. I'm like, do we think that all of these Hayden scenes are going to be like flashbacks, or do we think like it's going to be hallucinations, like dreams, visions, something? I'll be very curious to see how much they're actually putting him to use in this, especially after I think he did such a great job in the Obi-Wan show. I hope that we're able to build on that a little bit in this series. But going back to season 2, episodes 21 and 22 of that season, the finale, Twilight of the Apprentice, part 1 and 2. Again, this is kind of a given. You kind of need to see what happened in these episodes, I think, probably to understand a big part of where Ahsoka is coming from in some of her history. Because she is such, I mean, for all intents and purposes, she sort of dies in this season finale, and then we just don't see her again for 2 years. And for so long, all of us fans in real time, we're just having to live with the question, Ahsoka lives? Question mark? We had no idea for so long, and it was just the most devastating thing. But every single person like zooms in on that last scene where Morai flies out of the cave, trying to see like, what can you see in this scene of this little figure that potentially is walking further into the temple on Malachor, potentially stumbling, not clear. But this absolutely epic saber battle that goes down between her and Anakin is just one of the most emotional moments, I think, in all of Star Wars. Very reminiscent of what we got in the final duel between Kenobi and Vader in the Kenobi series. But this is truly epic Star Wars, and I think definitely required to watch in advance of the Ahsoka series. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's those 2 episodes. I remember I wasn't sure how they were going to weave Ahsoka into the series, right? When I was watching it, and I was like, okay, is it going to work? But they really smartly, as you pointed out, Laura, she comes in every once in a while, because the rebels have to be allowed to stand on their own and create a fandom within the fans for these characters. And so when you bring Ahsoka, because as you said, she's such a strong presence by this point in her history in the Star Wars universe and in the Star Wars fandom, she could have overshadowed them if she'd been in too much of the series. So the fact that we got this incredible battle with Anakin and a sense of closure, and I don't mean closure in a good way, but closure in her understanding and really seeing what has become of Anakin and the heartbreak that she goes through, while also making sure that Ezra is okay, right? Kind of learning the lessons from Anakin and showing how much she didn't fall to the other side, and how she's retained a lot of the lessons that Anakin taught her as his Padawan. Yet, you know, he gave in to the darkness. He killed this thing, which is very reminiscent of what he said to Kenobi, right? You didn't kill Anakin, I killed Anakin. And he says this to Ahsoka in that battle. You know, I killed Anakin. Anakin had to die. He was too soft. He had to die, right? And so to see that moment where you see his eye and the crack in the mask, and you see his eye, and you see Ahsoka like just hear him say her name, and how that shocks her for a moment and brings her back to that moment, or to the relationship that she had before with him. And then he takes advantage of that moment, because he is fully Vader in the battle with her. And so it's just so kick-ass, man. It's just such a kick-ass episode, or the 2 episodes there. That one and the Two Sons one with Kenobi and Maul are my 2 favorite, or 3 favorite episodes, I guess, of Rebels for sure, because of the emotion, you know. So
3 solid ones for sure, 100%. And the Twilight of the Apprentice, I mean, that final scene where Anakin's mask is exposed, they do the same thing they do in Kenobi, which is audio mixing Matt Lanter's voice with James Earl Jones. And it's just to a very, very successful, very cool effect. So that one's 100% worth a watch, and definitely worth revisiting if you're already familiar with Star Wars Rebels. I think that's a having gone through just this recent summer and done a full rewatch of the series, not a full rewatch, actually, I'm sorry. It's really kind of just essential episodes we're watching. 100% recommend. So good. But if you don't have time, there are lots of shows that are doing these little recaps, and you can just go find one of them and get
That's
your recap
true.
that way.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And I do love that shot of her walking back into the temple, like just this little, you know, like she's so unafraid when she knows she's got to do the right thing. And that's such a inspiring thing to see from a character like Ahsoka, who has endured so much judgment at times, and even judgment from the fandom. If you remember from the beginning when people were making fun of her, you know, and the character and hated the character. So to see her like be willingly walking into this temple to confront this thing, I thought was just such an awesome, heroic moment to give her, you know. So
she's come a long way.
Yeah, for sure. And then what? The season 4 finale you have here, the reunion and mission departure with Sabine. Yeah, is one last.
That's right. Of course, we get the return of Ahsoka Tano in this season 4 finale, and we get her. I think we get her in a couple of episodes in season 4. I think when Ezra's in the world between worlds, we see her sort of return there. That reveal that she lived and sort of how she lives, and Ezra's role in all of that. But this final departure, their mission, where we get sort of Ahsoka dressed like in all white. We haven't seen that look in the trailers yet. For the live action series, I'm not sure if we're going to, if they're sort of backtracking and keeping her in the gray. Be very curious to see how it plays out, because the animated, the design of the animation Ahsoka the White is very cool. But that departure of her and Sabine going on their way to look for Ezra really sets up what exactly we're getting in this live action Ahsoka series. So again, I think sort of an essential episode for sure to go back and revisit. And I completely forgot about World Between Worlds until we're sitting and talking about it. I'm not sure which episode that is in season 4, which number, but yeah, that one's a 2-parter as well. Wolves and Adore is the first one. And I think you need both of those to be considered a special required viewing for the live action series.
Especially because it might pop up, which is crazy to think about in live action Star Wars. Oof.
Nuts.
All right. Anything more we should hit on? We're at the 15-minute mark. We should wrap up our show here, Laura. Anything more with Ahsoka that you want to recommend to anybody? And also, please, your Force Toast Rebels rewatch. What's going on with that?
We'll for sure get more into Tales of the Jedi and the Clone Wars in our next episode, but I think I can wrap it up there. But yeah, definitely check out Force Toast, our bonus series that we've been doing this summer. There are recaps out now for seasons 1 and 2 of Star Wars Rebels. We'll be releasing the recap for season 3 in a couple of weeks, and season 4 will come out the week before the Ahsoka series launches. Yeah, definitely. Get your knowledge there, folks. Get your knowledge there from her and Alice for sure. All right, well, there you go. Thank you all so much for joining us for this week's episode of the Jedi Way. You know, we try to do one episode every couple of weeks. And I'm sure once Ahsoka comes out, I'm sure Laura and I and Kevin will figure out how we're going to review Ahsoka and schedule that as well for you all. But yeah, Kevin, send Kevin some love, y'all. Send him some support, some spiritual support there, and your prayers. Kevin is kind of just dealing with the possibility of a new diagnosis, not saying that it's going to happen or anything. He's just gotten some tests. And so he's in the process of figuring out what it all means, which is why he couldn't join us today. So we miss him, and we want hopefully everything works out and he's back on the show in the next couple of weeks or next couple of shows. And we're going back full blast, all three of us. So, in our own ship. So just send him some love, send him some thoughts of comfort and support. And remind him that he has got more to do on this planet. So he's got to stay strong as he confronts this new stuff. So, Laura, where another fun show? Where can they find you and everything else you got going on, please? Sure. Come find me on Twitter and Instagram at shutup_Laura. And then the show that I host with my friend Alice I talked about, Force Toast, a Star Wars Happy Hour, is at Force Toast Pod on both Twitter and Instagram. And Kevin Smets, if you want to follow him or shoot him a message or shoot him a reply or something on Twitter and Instagram, he is at Kev Smets on both those platforms.
Absolutely. I'm at the Jedi. Oh, at the Jedi Way. Jesus. I'm at the Rocha Says on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, the Outlaw Nation on Twitch. I gotta go. And thank you so much for joining us. We love you madly. We appreciate you all madly so much. And Laura, what do we have to tell them?
We tell them until next time, remember, your focus determines your reality.